And we're back again.
I'm also here again.
And this is a very special episode of our show. Kind of unlike anything we've done before, because I've actually done research for it.
Well, if we just do more stuff like this, it won't be very special at all. I have a feeling if this goes as well as I hope it's going to go, that this will just become the norm, and what we did at the start will just become special.
I think we should still try and find a balance between the tangential rambling and maybe some more informative stuff.
Yeah.
So that...
Maybe if we get enough formats, we should start naming some of them. But for now, we're pretty much an unnamed podcast, and as such...
we have taken the podcasting world literally by storm.
Yeah.
The reviews are in. Everyone's a fan.
Yeah, everyone who listens to it's a fan.
All the kids are going crazy. They're quoting us constantly.
Mm-hmm. More popular than fidget spinners.
So, okay, before we get into anything... Did you know...
What, talk about tangential rambling, yeah.
Do you know, like, the origin of fidget spinners?
How far back are we going? To the invention of the bearing? Or, like...
Like, what the original concept behind making a fidget spinner was?
I presume I know the fidget cube got popular, and then the fidget spinner came out and got popular after that. The idea being it's meant to be, like, it's just something to occupy your time with. There's meant to be science backing it up.
The original concept was for people who have attention deficit disorder.
Yes, yeah.
And so it kind of helps you concentrate, it distracts you a little bit, you
Yeah.
know. And I think it's somewhat telling that a product developed for ADHD has become the most massively, like, widespread popular product anywhere.
True. I think to some extent, like, oh man, everyone's on that scale, right? I fidget, like, I'm one of those people who, like, tap, like, raises and lowers their knee, dawdles with you. I don't know. I do that if I'm
restless legs.
Yeah, exactly. I have that, and I'll always be like playing around with just like bits on my desk at work. So I don't think that's I think the science behind like fidgeting, anyway, is it's like to like overwhelm those senses to like stop you from being distracted by stuff. So you actually it's almost the opposite of distraction. It's to keep that busy so you can focus on.
Yeah, like you can't, if your hand is fidget spinning, then it can't be texting or doing whatever
stuff.
It's good that we're talking about science this early on, because a big theme of
Do I sense a segue?
A big theme of this episode is going to be science based.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. But
I should just say that I don't really know much about the premise of what this is more of a surprise for. This is almost as much of a surprise for me as it is to anyone listening.
Yeah, so I have a list of phenomena in front of me.
Good word.
That have all been linked by the internet as being part of the same theory, hypothesis, whatever you want to call it. And
really?
I'm going to present these things to you, and we're going to try and sort of get to the bottom of them and see what's going on.
So all of these things you're going to mention, they all have the same forces behind it, in theory.
I think so, yeah. But I'm not going to try. What I'm really going to try and do is not make it about what I think, and maybe make it just about what you think and how you react to what people are saying.
Okay.
But this whole thing, it starts with the political situation in Africa in the 20th century,
right,
and it ends with lyrics from the pop song Barbie Girl.
Right, wow.
Because the idea behind this is that reality as we know it is not how we know it.
Okay, right.
The nature of reality can change, can shift. There are many dimensions and many possibilities.
Right.
So anything is possible, and sometimes a thing that might be possible could be considered impossible.
Okay.
So, in 2013...
I've already scoffed once. It's not good, is it? We're like 4 minutes in.
Keep an open mind. That would be my main advice. Keep an open mind, but I still want to hear your thoughts and opinions.
Alright, okay. I'll do my best.
Do you know, have you heard of the Mandela effect?
No, I've heard of the Mandela effect, but I couldn't give you a very apt description. I've heard that phrase.
Okay, that's good. Because a side thing as well. When I saw you this weekend, I really wanted to say, like, I'm going to do a show on the Mandela effect. Like, but if I asked you, have you heard of the Mandela?
I'd have looked into it,
or you could have gone, yes, I know about the Mandela effect. Mm-hmm. It's this, and this, and then my entire premise for a podcast and this discussion is gone. Good.
Okay, so I'm at the level you wanted me at.
I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions about a lot of things, and I want you to answer all of them honestly.
Yeah.
But go with your gut reaction.
Yeah, I can do that. I do that.
But before we get to any of the stuff, the origin of this is that in 2013, Nelson Mandela died.
Correct.
In this timeline.
Okay.
And a lot of people were very confused about the news that Nelson Mandela had died because they remember him dying in the 1980s while he was still in captivity.
Okay.
Captivity.
Yeah.
Like he was a leopard or something. I don't know.
There's not many left in the wild, but they had some Mandelas in captivity. Yeah.
There go. And now we see the behind bars Mandela, native to this timeline and this timeline alone.
Okay.
So the main thing from Nelson Mandela dying and all of these people and their confusion about Nelson Mandela's already dead.
Yeah.
Like how can he die? He died in the 80s. I remember that happening. So they all come forward and they start talking about these very specific memories they have of Nelson Mandela's death.
Yeah. And
from this, the term the Mandela effect is coined.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So before I get into
I thought it was the Frosty's kid effect, but I mean whatever.
And this is another thing as well, is we talked about misinformation and false news last time, so I think there's a tangential connection between that episode and this one. It's like they all follow on in a way.
Okay.
So, lightening the mood a bit, the film Forrest Gump.
Okay.
You've seen it, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Like it? It's a good movie, yeah?
It's alright.
Yeah. Forrest Gump's mother used to say something to him.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
What was that?
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Life
is like
a box of chocolates. Yeah. Would it surprise you, John, if you found out that the actual quote was, well, in the movie Forrest Gump, Forrest says, "My mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates." That is a famous line that everyone who has ever seen the movie would know. Well, if you go back and watch the movie, it says, life was like a box of chocolates. And that doesn't even sound right, the quote or in the context of the movie. I've never met somebody who remembers it saying was. If you go on Google and type in the beginning of the quote and stop at life, the next suggested word is and not was.
Okay.
So, it must be...
Gosh, don't jump to another timeline.
Well, I like that. So a lot of this stuff I have just that one in particular I just copied from a BuzzFeed list.
Yeah, a can's going to open. There you go.
Oh, sorry if that hurt your earbuds.
I gave them at least half a second to turn the volume down.
That was not enough time.
Mm-mm.
But so I like that this person is full on saying that this has to be an example of the Mandela effect.
Right. Okay.
And they're saying in here that doesn't even sound right with the quote or in the context of the movie. Now, the context of the movie is Forrest Gump's talking about his mum in the past. There's a lot of flashbacks and there's a lot of timeline jumping.
Right.
So for him to say, my mama always said life was like a box of chocolates, can make sense.
Yeah. No, I how soon do you want my opinion on this?
Right now.
Right now. We're dropping it right now.
Before we go balls deep on this, give me what your initial
So while we're just at Helm's Deep.
yeah. Helms then balls.
Okay. And the journey therefore. So my immediate feeling, I'm not against multiverse theory, but one thing I do subscribe to is that they're isolated from each other. The reality split. If it's the reason it's hard to prove is because essentially you can't look across to those without maybe some either looking backwards or anyway it's a very complicated idea.
What if there were leaks? What if little bits of information just started leaking through?
But this is the thing, right? So when we're talking about this and these potential divisions in timeline stuff, this is all from a very human centric perspective, and it's very bizarre that it's almost too big of a split. Really, science is just talking about individual particles and stuff, and so when we talk about there's a chance that you could just appear on Mars, from a quantum perspective,
or you could just wake up with a fish's head,
right? But really, in theory that's possible, but what is much more likely is just one atom goes there or whatever. Like the chance of the larger the object is, the more unlikely it is that all of that will change it, or So if the multiverse, I'm not against the multiverse theory. I think it's probably true. Like a lot of science does point to it, but I don't.
Well, that's good because I've got a lot of proof here.
Yeah,
a lot of proof that the multiverses are happening.
Yeah, but
by the end of this, mate, you are going to be so converted.
Okay, am I? Well, I'm looking forward to that because But I think what's more likely here is that it's to do with the flaws in human perception. That's my. So sure, multiverse might be true, but I don't think that's how it works. And I think what's much more likely here is that human perception and how we perceive things is a fault. I think because we know we don't have an objectively good view of the world. Memories are faulty. Society, like the life is a box of chocolate thing. You only it might come back to a skit that someone did that misquoted it, and that like makes it more of a because it wasn't necessarily the film that made that popular. It was people saying it afterwards that made it popular.
It's interesting that you're saying that now because we're going to come back to that later.
Right, but that's my initial reaction is that it's not multiverse and that it's more to do with
humans being idiots.
It's not idiots, but just our perception is this like essentially this symptom of evolution, and it benefited us in certain situations, but it's not like we like to think of it as like we see things and we know how we saw things. That's not the case. Like stuff happens, so things in reality happen only one way, but you can have 20 people observe it and all describe it differently because memories aren't accurate records of what happened. Everyone takes things in differently, and you can have 20 people. That's why it's like you'll have a dash cam in a car and there'll be an accident and there'll be 20 witnesses. Those 20 witnesses will all describe it slightly differently, put the blame on different people because we all have opinions. We'll like when you're taking things in, taking certain details, but the dash cam that you can review is much more accurate than they will ever be, and that's something that's like pretty observable. You can test it, and I think that's probably more to blame than the multiverse.
There is an idea called cryptomnesia, which I will say, stepping out of the Mandela effect stuff. Cryptomnesia is a like legit thing that scientists came up with, not just like crackpots on the internet.
Not BuzzFeed, no.
Yeah. So there's an idea of I heard it discussed when people were talking about joke stealing, and this idea that you could see someone, you could be a comic, you could see another comic perform a bit, forget that you've ever seen a comic do that bit, and then write a very similar bit.
Yeah,
to it yourself.
No doubt.
Just mute that. There was an example or an experiment where people were put into groups and they had to come up with solutions to problems, and then they met up with these people individually a few weeks later, and they said, okay, I want you to come up with ideas that weren't suggested last time, and the amount of people that came up with other people's ideas and recycled other people's ideas when they were explicitly told to come up with new ideas, it kind of led the scientists to say, well, maybe people remember stuff on one level, and then there's another level where you remember, but you don't remember that you remember.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time we exist, we are taking in information, holding on to certain bits, and there's a reason we hold on to that as memories. But other bit, like, I mean, I've driven home from work, and I couldn't tell you a single thing about that drive home, because I've been somewhere else thinking about other things, but I didn't crash my car. So it's like, there is definitely a disconnect between, like, we are pretty autonomous, actually. Like, everything we do is actually pretty autonomous. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that consciousness actually just takes responsibility after you've done something and tries to explain why you've done it. And there's lots of, like, tests you can do to kind of prove that. And we've got it in our heads, a lot of people have got it in their heads, that everything we do is pretty deliberate. Unless it's like touching a hot stove and taking your hand off, that's a reflex. But everything else is definitely considered. It's kind of worryingly quite far from that, almost to the extent where you can kind of even question whether people consciously act at all. But anyway,
we're only like one item deep on this, unless you count the Nelson Mandela thing, which I really kind of don't, because that's just the catalyst, right?
Yeah,
we're one item deep on the examples of this happening. So
let's go deeper.
Yeah. Could I ask that you not fidget with Lego in front of the microphone?
Oh, but it goes back to exactly
fidget. You need a fidget spinner.
I do.
Although that might have some whirring, I don't know. So are you ready for? So you're still unconvinced that this is a timeline thing and things are changing.
I'm utterly on the
side of human error.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Maybe this next one might sway you a little bit. The first few ones I'm going to be just reading from stuff I copied from BuzzFeed articles. At a certain point, it's going to be stuff that I typed out myself, and I think that will become clear. 2. The beloved show about a woman named Carrie Bradshaw and her friends living in New York City is known by most who were original fans of the show as Sex
in the City.
Sex in the City. Now, if you go back and watch the show, it is called Sex and the City.
See, I was in two minds about what to call it. I had and and in my head.
The producers never changed the name, and there is no record left of it ever being called Sex in the City. This instance also has some proof that it was once called Sex in the City. Above is a montage of clips from award shows where all of the presenters called the show Sex in the City. It is highly unlikely that every single presenter got the show's name wrong.
No,
it is highly unlikely that they all got it wrong.
Is it though?
Well, yeah. I mean,
I think
people in the entertainment industry, they're sharp. They're sharper than us.
No, I imagine things like the caption when they're doing the awards would probably be Sex and the City. But I feel like this once again comes down to social phenomenon. Like, really, when you read that title, it's like when you read a sentence, you're not actually... It's that thing where you can actually scramble around most of the letters in a sentence and still read it. Because a lot of what the brain does is anticipation. So when people watch those title screens and it comes up, they don't consciously read Sex and the City. If they've socially known it as Sex and the City, they won't go, oh, damn, that's called and. They'll just, like, and in are kind of like non-words almost.
Yeah, they're interchangeable sort of filler to a sense.
They're like, so I don't think people would... I don't find it that surprising that people would have because I think if it's more socially known as Sex in the City, and also in my head I was like, Sex and the City. I was so close to messing that up for you, but yeah.
That's good. No, so far you've been wrong on both counts. So
yes,
you're experiencing the Mandela effect right now. Like information that you thought you could trust is being proved to be untrustworthy.
Yeah. If though you said to me before asking that, all right, if you get this wrong, I'm going to shoot your mum, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't feel confident enough in those. These are all things that I haven't watched Forrest. I've certainly heard people say that reference more than I've watched the film. And same with Sex in the City. Funny enough, I've really not seen much about that. And I think a lot of people have probably heard about it more than they've seen it.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that on the Forrest Gump one, you were saying that it's human error, and here, BuzzFeed, because this is another one from BuzzFeed, they are saying that it's highly unlikely to be human error, so it has to be something else.
Right. Guess I disagree.
Fair enough. There's actually an episode of Peep Show where Mark is trying to hack into Sophie's emails, and he's like, oh, okay, what could it be? He goes, all right, her favourite TV show, and he types in Sex and the City, which is the correct name for the show, and then he goes, oh, what if she got it wrong? Like, what? Because everyone thinks it's Sex in the City. So he types in Sex in the City, and he gets access to her emails, and then the plot takes on from there. Yeah. So I want to know at what point did the Peep Show writers, they were ahead of all of us knowing about the Mandela effect. They are
right.
They are aware of the shifting nature of reality, and they can write their show around it. It's almost ingenious.
Depends if you see it as shifting nature of reality or just people getting. I'm just very. I don't know. I feel very aware that people get stuff wrong a lot. I think there's...
Let me one more time for clarity. It is highly unlikely...
Stop saying that! Anyway.
Let's move on to the next item. This one didn't come from BuzzFeed.
We passed the helm?
Not yet, no.
Right, okay.
How do you spell the word vengeance?
Oh, gosh. VENGE... ENCE. Oh.
VENGEANCE.
Right.
This one I got from a YouTube video where a girl was just saying like a bunch of examples of the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Some gems from this, and this is one I wrote myself. Some gems from this video include: my English teacher probably wouldn't correct it if I wrote this on in a test.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't correct it, and the only possible reason for that is the Mandela effect.
Once again, I mean, that one's even... Because essentially what they're trying to say, right, is that there's a split in time where one way went one way with one thing and one way went the other way with that. Now, vengeance, I don't know about... Like, so, sure enough, Sex in the City... Yeah, maybe they were sitting in a writer's room trying to finalise the title for the show, right? And...
That could be something you really sweat over, like, is it in the city
enough.
or and the city?
And that may be a dividing point. But vengeance seems too much of a... organic, natural, like that is a long thing for that to happen. The spelling probably changed over history as well. Like
it's derived from another word at some point.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like I don't really see what the split's meant to be here. That's just people not knowing the spelling of a word. I mean, AE, it's kind of a silent A, vengeance. It's like you'd maybe say ants or ents.
Oh, that was another thing she did in the video as well. She was like the pronunciation. Sorry, I fucked up there. I'm getting nervous on this mic. She was saying that doesn't even work because you would pronounce it as vengeance.
Yeah, ignoring all of the silent K's in the language and everything else.
Yeah, Q's and U's and yeah.
But no, it's definitely a time. I mean, that was probably the least tangible one.
The only possible reason for that is the Mandela effect.
Okay,
that's what she
said.
They're
very certain in it, aren't they?
So for the next item on the list, we're going back to entertainment and titles of things.
Okay.
Are you aware of the Tom Cruise movie about vampires, where he plays a vampire?
No.
Okay, well, there's a film and a book called Interview with the Vampire,
okay.
A Vampire.
Okay.
If you type in Google Interview with, the suggested ending is A Vampire. Surprisingly, the movie is actually called Interview with the Vampire. Again, this doesn't sound right.
Okay.
And this particular one on the BuzzFeed, this one came from BuzzFeed, they had a link to Tom Cruise in an interview.
Yeah.
Where he flipped his timelines momentarily.
Oh no!
And he said Interview with a Vampire instead of the Vampire.
Well, that's a shame for him, isn't it?
Which is kind of like all of those presenters at the award shows and the high unlikeliness that they all got it wrong.
Right, okay.
And this is, again, something that we're going to come back to, is people trying to validate the idea of these instances being the Mandela effect by showing reliable sources, people who were involved in the works, falling into the pattern.
See, where I would say here, so I'm putting forward my theory as being it's humans messing up. And the common link in all of these is they're humans. So I feel like mine has this common theme running through it that kind of does back up what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean...
Like I know they're qualified because they dealt with it and stuff, but like if basically what I'm saying is true, and like especially like there's like it's like ping pong stuff, like there's like things like that. It would sound weird the other way around, right? So you call something pong ping, but like that might not, like there's things that naturally sound better to the human brain.
Pong ping don't have the same ring.
No, they don't. But there's unspoken rules in language, for example. These are all like English examples. Has this ever happened in the Chinese language? What I'm saying is these might all be things, especially like with...
I'll learn Chinese, go on the Chinese internet and get back on... hack into Cisco.
The censored internet they got going. Yeah. What I'm saying is like things like this, they're all kind of like... I mean, especially the word ones. They're very... Like the actual Mandela thing is more convincing than, or more of an interesting case than the word ones, because the word ones, you know, in just sounds better. Sex in the City sounds better than and also if you say it quickly, it's easy to mishear that. Just things
Interview
like that.
with the vampire, like he's the vampire, not just a vampire. There's loads of vampires in that movie, but he's the vampire.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a vampire maybe just sounds better to the most of the population. And once again, these are minor words that we are used to like interchanging in sentences. Just a little switch of context. That it's easy, I can imagine, to pick up and do that. And they're saying it's like astronomically small, but like, so is anyone being born if you just look at it from a beginning of time thing? But it happens.
So I think it's interesting that you're sticking to your guns on the human error angle.
I am. Yeah.
When
it's just so obvious, isn't it, that it's not that.
Well, if it was just humans, why would these people like Tom Cruise, who are directly involved in it, why would they make human errors? It's just, Shall I move on to the next item?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear where it's going.
This one concerns music.
Mm-hmm.
Many of those familiar with the song "We Are the Champions" remember the final lyrics being "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions ... of the world." Guess what? There is no "of the world." The song just ends, and it's driving people crazy because they feel 100% sure that they've heard otherwise in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an interesting example, I think, because the actual chorus, as it appears earlier in the song, when it transitions back into the verses, pardon me, does say "of the world."
Right. Yeah.
It's just that the song itself doesn't end on
it. Yeah.
"of the world." Now, my stepdad is a massive Queen fan, and I asked him about this. I just said straight up, how does the song "We Are the Champions" end?
Yeah.
Is it "We Are the Champions" or is it "of the world"?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he didn't know because there are so many live versions of that song where the song might end at "We Are the Champions," but then Freddie Mercury a cappella would go "of the world" and make like a big...
Or all of the audiences.
Because they all come from the timeline where the song did end that way.
Yeah.
And they're going to force Queen to play the song the way they remember it.
Yeah, I mean, or the rest of the song had that structure to it, and then your brain just goes, "This is the follow-on.
This is the next bit." Yeah.
But I mean, who knows?
It's. I think I need to find a way to break through your. And this is kind of the arguments that I've inherited from the people on YouTube and the way that they're arguing this point. Like you are too indoctrinated in believing that this stuff couldn't happen.
Yeah.
You're too close-minded, and I feel like you need to open up and accept the notion that this is happening. Like almost to the point. I've heard a couple of people on YouTube say that they describe people like you as brainwashed.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I mean, to what purpose? I'm not sure, but we'll see.
The next example is about your favourite franchise in all history, Star Wars.
Oh yes, me and Star Wars have a mixed relationship. As I remembered recently, I would not have said that I had ever written that status. By the way, maybe that was a different timeline.
It could be, couldn't it? I mean, you said, oh, what, like, who even likes Star Wars anymore? So
I posted that in 2009, obviously before kind of the rebirth of like, its kind of resurgence, and I just remember, I don't remember ever disliking Star Wars or having that opinion.
So it can't be you then.
No.
I like that you're coming round. Like you're slowly coming round to thinking that maybe there's something more going on than just human error.
Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So. The most famous and important character in the Star Wars franchise is Darth Vader.
Oh, right.
And his most important character moment, arguably, comes in Empire Strikes Back, when he
I know where we're going with this.
When he confronts Luke Skywalker in a climactic lightsaber fight, and Darth Vader, having defeated Luke and I think chopped his hand off at this point, he says,
"Luke,
Obi-Wan never."
Oh, right. Sorry.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you murdered him.
No, Luke, I am your father.
See, it's interesting there that when you kind of jumped in, you were just going to say, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, but it says no before it.
There's no Luke. It's just,
okay.
No, I am your father.
Okay.
So, earlier you said that people quoting the Forrest Gump line...
Yeah.
could have been them fudging it, if you pardon the chocolate-based fun.
Yes.
Thank you. So this could, I think it would be easy to write off this phenomena along the same lines. Like everyone is a hack who tries to do a Darth Vader impression, and if you just say "No, I am your father," and you suck at impressions, people go, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But maybe if you throw Luke in there,
I think when you remove the context of the scene, Luke, I am your father is the best summary of what happens, essentially. Like, it's him saying, Luke, I am your father. And it gives context to it. You got, like, the main I still don't see any reason why this isn't what I'm saying. You see.
Well, James Earl Jones,
okay,
in an interview, once referred to the line as "Luke, I am your father,"
and of course he should be in the know
because he's the voice actor of Darth Vader in those films. So if we go back to the Sex in the City logic,
the producers,
it should be highly unlikely that those people, highly unlikely that Tom Cruise gets it wrong.
Yeah, it
is far more likely that reality is changing around us and our brains just can't keep up with it.
See, that's a very odd and interesting thing to suggest. That the fact that I can essentially make that about even things I'm saying now, and like this whole like me misremembering my past status, it just shows that like you can kind of bend that perspective to almost anything and kind of convince yourself of that, but you're essentially ignoring so much other context just for like trying to make that fit that idea. Why is it? So where's the maths that says that what I'm saying is really unlikely, and that
BuzzFeed for one, highly unlikely.
Sorry, my bad. But where's the maths that says it therefore has to be this?
Yeah, I mean, look, it basically comes down to what you want to believe about yourself. Do you want to believe that you're walking around with all of this incorrect knowledge in your head because you just can't remember things? Or do you want to believe that actually life, memory, reality, all of it is more amazing than everyone else understands? But you, if you're writing about the Mandela effect, if you're talking about the Mandela effect, you have transcended that human pitfall.
Yeah. I see. Right, so basically this is a conspiracy theory. Like, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's saying there's a bunch of people like
it does get pretty conspiratorial towards the end.
Well, I was going to say, it already is, right? Because essentially what conspiracy theorists all have in common is kind of what you touched on there. It's about them wanting to be on the other side of the looking glass, and like they're the special ones who found out the truth, right?
I said this, I don't know if it was last episode or the one before, but I said the best part of a conspiracy theory is when it becomes self-serving.
Yes.
Like the intergalactic lizard people, they planted the idea in humanity of intergalactic lizard people being the most ridiculous idea ever, so that if you come out and say intergalactic,
everyone will shun you. So this is
also they put chemicals in the water to dumb people down, but if you notice they're doing that, then they haven't worked on you and you're smart.
I mean, you loyal.
You a genius.
You're a genius. But this is it, right? This is how conspiracies work. Like, conspiracy theories all work on these similar premises. Like, you're on the side of the looking glass. You can like think of anything and there's always like something that says, yeah, but they did this to counter that. They just firefight your arguments to make it work for them. And then you'll get like you'll come up with so many things that you'll go back to the first point and they'll be like, oh yeah, but like because basically what they're fighting is actual reality by doing this, and there's so much that you have to combat and like come up with something. And it's basically just fiction work, right? That's what they're doing.
And I mean, and it's kind of what you're doing now. Like, there's all of these people saying that they've got this thing figured out, and you're just coming up with more and more reasons, human psychology, science, memory, when really, like, the truth of the situation should be staring you in the face at this point.
Yeah, but it's not.
So maybe you just need more examples.
You know what? I'll entertain it.
Right. Okay, good. I still think I'm going to convert you and win you over. Mandela effect is real. So the next one concerns the lyrics of a very famous 1990s pop song. Finish this phrase, if you will.
Oh, gosh.
I'm a Barbie girl.
In a Barbie world. Wrong, yeah.
The correct lyric is, I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
Oh, okay.
Which, and I got this one from the same person who was talking about vengeance.
See, what the most interesting thing about this is that the Mandela effect is kind of unique to all of these other ones, because these are all essentially linguistical anomalies.
Yeah, there are going to be a couple that we get to.
Because events people misremembering events is a lot different to like linguistical stuff, I think. But anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. When you say it to me, I'm definitely like, oh wow, like that's crazy that I did remember that wrong. The jump from that to it's a timeline thing, that's where I'm missing where they're going to that with. Like,
are you saying that there isn't enough of a cohesive link and that everything that I've said thus far doesn't constitute proof?
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, everything, apart from the ones that came from BuzzFeed, all of the ones that came from YouTube, the word proof was in the video title for all of them.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad. That's my bad. Sorry. I didn't realise it had title proof.
So the next item on the list goes back to Tom Hanks movies.
Right.
2 Tom Hanks movies in this. Maybe that's somehow relevant. I don't know. But
he's the cause. That's what I'm going with anyway.
Do you think Forrest Gump might have been a time traveller who was actually like he knew that Apple computers?
He could move freely move between time. In fact, timelines were stable until he was born, and he was a being that can move through them. And as he goes through them, the ripples are what those are the changes that it's making. But it only affects human level stuff.
Right. Yeah. And
entire words and
titles of TV
it's mainly
shows, yeah.
It's mainly to do with media. He affects mainly.
So in the film Apollo 13, which is based on something that really happened, might I add.
Yeah.
There's a very famous line in which the people on the spacecraft have to let the people on the ground team know that shit isn't particularly going well.
No.
And there's a very famous line that they say to let the people in Houston know that there is a problem aboard their spaceship.
And that they've got one.
So what do they say?
Houston, we appear to have a problem.
Most people remember the line as, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
The line is actually, Houston, we've had a problem.
Oh, okay.
So I want to know, and I couldn't find this anywhere.
Once again, a very tiny word that's changed. It's not like the entire context of the sentence has just changed, but yes.
You mean if they rewatched the film? So you would be more on board with this idea being valid that stuff was changing if someone watched Apollo 13, thought it went the way that Apollo 13 goes, and then they rewatch it and everything's fine. That Tom Hanks gets to go into space. They all have a nice journey and they land on the moon.
I guess so, yeah. Like, basically, these are all... So, compared to what I understand reality to be like, which is where I was saying the multiverse stuff and where the splits are on, like, an atomic level, that does multiply out to, like, different things, but all of this is too on a human level to be relevant. But it's also so small on a human level that it should be happening on a bigger scale, surely. It should be happening with different things other than just words. It shouldn't just be, coincidentally, small parts of language. It should be entire contextual, like, entire plots changing, and it should be, like, if we're noticing it now, this should happen all the time in our day-to-day lives.
So, let's say if someone noticed an entirely new neighbourhood just popped up.
Is this where it's going?
This isn't actually on the list because I couldn't find the video again, but I did watch a video.
Did that proof in the title?
It did, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where a guy basically... He said he drove. There was footage of him driving through his neighbourhood, and he goes, "This neighbourhood has never been here. I've lived in this city my entire life, and I swear this neighbourhood has never been here." And then he goes on Google Maps. He shows you where this neighbourhood is. He shows you vaguely where his house is.
Yeah.
So he's got some level of comprehension.
Yeah.
You know, he's not an idiot. He didn't just point and go, "That's my house."
Yes.
So you can't write him off as human error because he's not an idiot. You know.
So why is he going on Google Maps? Was it not there on Google Maps?
He just says it wasn't there at all. I don't know if he checks Google Maps every day for new shit, but at one point he points at a green space and he goes, that's near the new neighbourhood, and he goes, I played in this park all the time as a child and I never saw this neighbourhood.
Right.
So that has to be proof. Like what do you have to say about that?
That's one man. Like, this isn't on the same scale. There's no one else in that neighbourhood. Like, who was he playing with? Have they asked him? Have they asked Jeff, his childhood friend? Hey, Jeff, do you remember that? He goes, yeah. Maybe that's the Terrence estate.
Maybe they all got crushed as the new neighbourhood transcended down from.
Has he had a medical exam? Has he got onset dementia? You know, when was it built? Was it built like in a year? Like, did he go on holiday or work somewhere new, come back and go, well, this is new, and suddenly it's a, you know...
Yeah, when did they ship it all in and set it all up?
Where's the context?
To be fair, like, that one's not on my list.
Right,
so
okay. Well,
I'll give you a pass on that one.
It did have proof in the title.
It did have proof.
I'm getting conflicting messages.
So apart from that one, which isn't on my list, there are two that don't concern media and don't concern like titles and
which is
and
Mandela
and that I haven't got to yet.
Oh.
So I'll get this next one out the way.
All right.
And then we'll talk about some ones that are bigger.
Yeah.
And more sort of documented than.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So Demi Lovato, La La Land. Now, that's a song. I hadn't heard of it.
No.
Oh, I had heard of it, but I hadn't heard it.
No, I've not heard of the musical.
Yeah, well, all of the YouTube comments, because I checked the song out, longer than I needed to, but all of the comments were like, "Oh, I knew about this. This was my La La Land before La La Land."
Oh,
so like,
no.
Demi Lovato has
really butthurt.
They have hipster fans.
Oh, for God's sake! How has it got to that?
So if anyone's listening to this and they know this song, they might remember a lyric that says, "I'm not a supermodel. I still eat at McDonald's." However, if they go and listen to the YouTube version of the song now, it says, "I'm not a supermodel. I still eat at Ronald's." This is a particularly interesting example, as Demi Lovato appears to be denouncing the ideas of celebrity and conformity in the song, whilst simultaneously being a Nickelodeon child star. Perhaps the version of Demi that recorded this song is from an abandoned timeline where pop stars are known for integrity and honest expression in their work. Full disclosure, upon listening to the full song, I did start to enjoy it.
No.
All right then. Let's talk. let's talk about the world. Let's talk about the globe. Let's talk about the atlas. Let's talk about maps.
Let's do it.
Now, did you know that there was once an island next to Australia?
Still isn't there, New Zealand?
Well, I mean, obviously, like
Tasmania.
On the other side of Australia.
Oh, Rottnest Islands.
Well, like, you know, there's that big. So you look at a world map.
Yeah.
You have Australia.
Yeah.
And then you just have a massive. You have some stuff, but
ocean, yeah.
A massive void of ocean, and then you get to like, is it then Africa and then America?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, in the space between Australia and the next continent along, there is an island. There was an island,
right.
An entire island.
Okay.
And the proof for this is twofold. I could give you one piece of proof, and you can just go, oh yeah, well, yeah, blah blah, and discount that. Sure.
But two.
That's
2 data points, yeah.
And these don't come from just some person saying some shit. There is visual evidence for this. I mean, I could Google it now, but I don't have it. You can just trust me. In the Matthew McConaughey film, Dazed and Confused,
right.
There is at one point where one character stands next to a globe, and people have freeze framed on that globe, and there is an island next to Australia, a massive island.
Yeah.
And as well as an episode of Animaniacs where Rob Paulsen sang a shitty song about countries in front of a backdrop of the globe. People freeze framed it on this animation of the globe, and they went, "Oh look, there it is. Yeah. There's the island."
Yeah, yeah.
So that is proof from. That's proof from a film where there was a globe with something next to Australia, and then in Animaniacs, the same thing occurred.
Yeah, yeah. So let's break down what the physics of this is meant to be, because I'm a little bit confused. Because all the other ones are like, my bad. All the other ones are like, there was one time where everyone like knew there was this reality, blah blah blah, and then a change happened, and then everyone's misremembering it because you go back and you look at it, but that thing's changed now, but everyone remembers it from when it was before. But then if the idea is that when they were filmed, is it the idea that when they were filmed there was an island there, and then the island's disappeared since, and it's left over as traces on the film? If not, I'm pretty sure there are maps in films of the same era, and it won't be there. It seems like to me what probably happened was at some point when cartographers were discovering the world, they mismapped an area of the land, but then whoever was set dressing those two things just got up some like big old map and didn't really think, oh, is this correct? And it had the miscartographed mapping, and maybe they both got it from there.
Well, one of the videos that was talking about that I watched, talking about the dazed and confused example.
Yeah.
This was another brainwashed cuck like yourself, and they were talking about how some globes that you have like a logo of the company that made the globe actually on it.
Yes.
And they said that the biggest space to put it at eye level would be in that space, but how do you apply that to Animaniacs? How could it appear in Animaniacs, which is a cartoon show?
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to put a logo for the company that made the globe. They made the animation of the globe.
Yeah, it's true. But
is it not far more likely that there once was an island there, and these two works of art?
Yeah, sorry. If I'm gonna put it on a scale, yeah, it couldn't be that the guy was sitting across from a map and just like drew like the rough outlines of everything, including the sticker. Oh no!
But all of your arguments come back to human error. I mean,
yes,
I'm giving you giving you hard solid evidence here. Well, sticking with the theme, this YouTube video I found. The title of it I actually copied down because, I mean, when you're going to title something, you want it to summarise the work itself.
Right.
This is not, capital letters, my husband, exclamation mark, help, capital letters, continental drift, Pangea.
Sorry, what?
Woman claims that Pangea theory was not taught at school. Her husband used to tell her a story about being humiliated in class after saying that two continents, she doesn't say which ones, but I'm guessing South America and Africa, look like they fit together. Everyone laughed at him, and the teacher told him that he was foolish to ever think that. And now, years later, Pangea is accepted as a thing. Everyone agrees that it was a thing.
Yeah.
And she went to speak to her husband about this, and he does not recall this event ever happening to him. Woman deduces that this man is not the man she married, and is an alternate timeline version of her husband with different memories.
That way he was raised learning about Pangea.
He doesn't remember being humiliated about Pangea because he's always known Pangea.
See, maybe he mentioned that in passing, and like he's just. I genuinely think that he could have easily forgotten about that.
You think that's more likely than
an alternate timeline
than the man she's married to being a completely different man? Oh, the same man but with different memories than the man she married.
Yeah.
Well, she uploaded a video and it's her in her bathroom talking very quietly, which, in terms of just the video, is fucking amazing because it adds this whole element.
Like, she doesn't want him to hear.
Yeah,
she's in this house with this stranger. Yeah.
And everyone in the comments is going, like, look after yourself, make sure you're safe.
Oh my god.
Like, just because her husband doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't remember like one thing. She may have I'm just putting it out there. Like, it may have just been like someone else said that story to her, and she misallocated it to her husband. Like, it was years and years ago.
But that's another argument of yours that's predicated on human error.
Yeah.
Okay, look at all of this stuff that I'm coming out with, and your whole thing is just...
You're right, because humans are right all of the time, and then this is...
Well, no, it's not that they're right all of the time, it's that when they're wrong, it's never their fault.
Because timelines. Yeah.
So, I've got two more items, and then I've got some stuff that I've written down just as like a sort of... to kind of wrap up just the list aspect of this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Black Eyed Peas for a little while.
Okay. Let's not make that too long.
I like that boom boom pow. Them chickens jacking my style. They try to copy my swagger. I'm on that next shit now. I'm so...
2008?
3008. You so 2008.
I mean, that makes... Yeah, maybe that makes more sense.
But a lot of people remember the lyric being I'm so 2008.
Yeah.
And one of the YouTube videos where I watched someone talk about this, he said, of Fergie's late/8 rhyme, a man claimed the song used to say 2008, as this was the year the song was released, and saying that you're so 2008 is that you're so contemporary, you're so now, you're so modern. The man found that when he fact-checked this, the song was not released until March 2009.
Yeah. Alright.
So So think about that. The reality changed.
There's 2 levels.
Yeah,
now.
it changed the lyric and then changed the year it came out.
So I'm going to put my theory out there. I mean, it's pretty crazy because it's pretty obvious it's timeline stuff. But I'm going to say they were writing in 2008. Okay, now they...
I like this. You're really getting into the headspace of the Black Eyed Peas.
I am. I'm channeling them. All right. Okay. I'm a pretentious twat, and I've written this. I've taken this like, it's current, but it's not enough for the Black Eyed Peas. I'm hungry. I'm hungry for more. I want to be edgy. So let's jump this like current and now thing. But say I'm ahead of my time, 2008. Right. I've written that in like the fall of 2008. I've written that. I'm edgy. We're prepping the album. We're also writing some other stuff. I'm thinking about my solo career and The Voice, right? And I'm really happy with it. So I put that out. But of course, when I've sung this and it's come out and it's now 2009, the thing that most people like, because you're right, the common phrase is I'm so now, right? No one was ready for the Black Eyed Peas and their complete obscurity and desperate need to be different. And therefore, the most common thing to remember it as is what would have been sensibly written by a normal human, but they didn't account, and humanity didn't account for Will I Am.
So I quite like this because initially you started coming at this from a place of human error, but you've expanded it to talking about just Will I Am being a poor songwriter.
No, I think
which is an idea that I can actually kind of agree with.
I think he's a poor songwriter.
There's evidence and proof of that. Now you're on my page.
Yeah. And while it's human, there's a lot of God knows how many songs, but
wasn't there one where they like did the song from Dirty Dancing? I've had the time of dirty bit.
Yeah, dirty bit. God, are they ahead of their time? Really?
By 1,000 years.
By 1,000 years. Anyway, so that's a mixture of Will I Am and human error. Possibly the scariest combination known to man.
Okay, so the final thing that I have on my list, I'm sure you'll be relieved because it must be exhausting for you to try and come up with new mental gymnastics to try and refute all of this insurmountable evidence.
My teenage anxiety is back.
Good.
It's fully reinstilled.
See, you've jumped.
Having to contain.
You've jumped back into the timeline of you that might have had some anxiety.
Yeah.
See, it's all possible.
Yeah.
Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
Picture Pikachu in your head.
Okay.
What colours come to mind?
Yellow, a weird like burgundy brown thing, red cheeks, black outlines.
Pikachu's tail.
Yeah.
Is the tip of it black?
I'm gonna say it's brown.
I think Pikachu's tail. So Pikachu has black bits on his ears. That much we know.
Yeah, but it's the same colour as the stripes on him.
Yeah.
Which is brown.
Well, it's black, but.
Oh, is it? Really?
Well, maybe in your time.
It's brown, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But
I think it's pretty. I'm probably getting that from a Pokemon card.
But people, I have like a little Pikachu plushie. So when I read this one, the first thing I did was look at
that, yeah.
and I went, "Oh my god, the tip of his tail isn't black."
What is it?
I think it goes yellow at the start, then there's a little black bit in the middle, and it's yellow at the end.
Oh right.
But people
remember it as being all black,
or as being yellow, black, yellow, black.
Mm.
Maybe that's what Wiz Khalifa was singing about in that.
Black and yellow, black and yellow. It was Pikachu's
he was trying
tail.
Wiz Khalifa was trying to warn us.
He just didn't want to say it overtly for fear of rejection.
Yeah. So
that's hard to fit the entire theory into a hook. As that as well.
The timeline is changing.
He should have just done an entire song.
So I want to get into. So the next two things I have are honourable mentions and then possible causes of this. Right. I think I'll do honourable mentions first, just so I can get some of the things I've written out of the way. So a lot of this stuff came from a YouTuber known as Moneybags73.
Yeah.
I have described him as an intellectually arrogant man who believes that Da Vinci and Michelangelo were either cultists or occultists. His elocution is somewhat sloppy, much like his memory. There was a woman called Internet Mom. So she even said herself that the Demi Lovato thing with McDonald's changing to Ronald's might be due to advertising/trademark laws. But then proceeded to get freaked out and hyped up about it anyway. I spent 5 minutes looking into it, and I found an album version of the same song where the lyric McDonald's is still there.
Right.
So she has a Northern British accent, but she still uses the American spelling of mum in her name, so make of that what you will. And the final...
It's all coming undone. Now we've got some context. They were so reputable in my head.
There's a man called Chris Curtis who made a 22-minute video entitled, "If you are experiencing the Mandela effect, this is why. You need to look into the flat earth." I watched the entire thing.
Oh, how long was that?
It's 22 minutes.
22 minutes.
I watched the entire thing.
I mean, that's less than this podcast, so he's
didn't,
concise.
He didn't mention the Mandela effect once.
Oh, no way!
He just spent it...
Do you know what? I'd love to go on the Wayback Machine. I bet he just retitled... Like, once he's uploaded his... He just retitled the video.
But he didn't mention the Mandela effect once. He just started talking about flat earth stuff and how gravity doesn't have consistent rules, and based on the way he thinks gravity works, if you go into water, the forces of gravity should pull you down.
And you should drown.
Yeah, because you can't swim in air, so why would you be able to swim in water?
Nothing to do with density at all.
And the final honourable mention goes to BuzzFeed for being a failing pile of garbage. Hail Trump.
People who don't know you are going to be so confused by all of this. Like, they'll have gone along thinking you're a genuine advocate for this idea.
So
then you're like not an advocate of this idea, but then you are pro-Trump at the end. What a roller coaster!
Yeah, I know.
What a roller coaster.
Maybe I'm just switching between timeline versions of me.
Yeah.
That are one way and then the other.
Hanks Jr.
So my last little section is possible causes. So these are
the things that you, before discussing with me, thought were the possible causes.
there's only 3 things written. One of them is what I think, and I'll do that one last. So if anyone was on the fence about my true beliefs, there you'll have it. But these are what the generally agreed upon theories as to why this is happening.
Okay.
So the first one, somebody in the future has the ability to time travel to the past, and does so with the intent to change the timeline, at which point things in our timeline change. But for some reason, the memories of a select few remain intact from the original timeline.
He's really picking the big stuff. Isn't he?
Because the basis of any good idea is the notion that your brain and your memories are somehow stronger and more real than the reality around you.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
The second one is Saturn.
Okay.
I couldn't find a lot of specific details on how Saturn could be responsible for this.
Compared to the specific details for the other ones, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've only got
I've
only got so much time, you know. And a lot of this stuff, like figuring it all out, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
What I did find about the Saturn thing was that some people think that there are different Earths, and that actually the planet we're on now, while it might look and feel the same as Earth, is actually in a different location.
Oh.
And that Saturn is either responsible or can be used to figure out where we are and where we used to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
And the final thing that I have written down...
Less said about that one, the better.
Yeah. I couldn't even... When I read that, I was like, okay, people think it's Saturn.
Sure, we'll put it in there.
I'll just let that idea stand on its own.
Yeah.
So what I think is going on, which is mass delusion and an echo chamber with people reinforcing false ideas.
Yeah. But not consciously, of course. It's just it's just a natural way that society is, and we are. Like, a lot of those examples are like linguistics, and like I said, they're phrases that people will have heard more than they'll have seen the source. You know, it's one of those things where it makes more sense in the brain to say a lot of those things that way, and so when people are quoting it, when you quote, you often misremember. And then it only takes, a sizable number of people, especially if it's like generally people will think of it that way, to start saying it. And then that quote's a more famous thing, and then that makes it into pop culture. If it gets referenced by Simpsons or whatever, then people actually, there's a lot of things that I never watched In fact, there's like most of those things. Like I never, I never really watched Sex and the City. I've not watched. I've watched Forest
Sex
Hills,
and the City. For fuck's sake, man.
No, you know what? Screw it. I'm in this timeline. Damn it! And I will use my timelines. No, actually, no. Sorry, I'm in the wrong timeline. That's
not rest your foot on the stand.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to get at here is it's just it just propagates itself because the phrases, especially the phrases ones, become more popular because they make more sense to us just as a flow or whatever, and then they're more popular than the actual source.
The thing that is really blood-boilingly annoying about this is that these people in their videos and in their art, they just can't even accept the idea that they might be wrong about something.
And the thing is, and there are a lot of, and it's very telling when you say about other stuff they believe in, because what they are is they're not true skeptics. They are people who just want to be different. Being skeptical is about not immediately believing stuff that comes to you and questioning it and taking a wider context. They're doing the opposite. They're questioning something, but what they're actually doing is just trying to reinforce one thing, ignoring other stuff. They're just picking very specific avenues to go down to reinforce the idea that they're special and they've got this correct worldview and everyone's wrong.
And what becomes annoying for me is that what could be an interesting discussion about, isn't it strange, what people misremember?
Yes.
And how there are these collective false memories that people have?
Yeah.
You could have a really interesting discussion about, why is it that people think...
Yeah, because I find that fascinating. I mean, it's a very interesting thing, and it's a great reaction when you say, what do you think the phrase is? I mean, that was fun for me, because I'm like, well, actually, what was it? Because I don't know, I can't remember it. That's the whole point.
If you had done... I'm really happy with how this went as well, because I think if you had done this exact research and presented it to me in the way that I presented it to you, I think I would have said pretty much most of the same things you said to me.
Yeah.
The stuff with Luke, I am your father, and life is like a box of chocolates. Those phrases are more famous than the scenes that they are in to a lot of people. So there is there could be a discussion about, why is it that people have to throw Luke, I am your father in there? But when people are talking about this stuff on the internet, it's like you have to jump to the most ridiculous. And the legitimate, what is true is all of this, and why I have a problem with the term proof as well, because they go, well, that's true. That is a thing. You do think it's this, and it's actually this. But that does not mean that it's all to do with interdimensional.
You can write whatever. Exactly. It's that thing where they have this thing, this one opinion or this worldview, and then they just look for specific examples where it fits that. Whereas actually, there's a much more logical, grounded, provable, testable, reason for it. Also the fact that the theory itself doesn't have commonality, what they physically saying is happening here. No one's saying that. They don't know. They're not talking about particles that cause it. They're talking about being. There's no tangible evidence for that. They're not even explaining the rules of how it works properly, because some of them are talking about some people remember this and whatever. Then there's one where it's one guy remembering a neighborhood wrong, and there's another one where it's but there's video evidence of it being wrong. Whereas all the others were no, all the evidence is stuff you can go back and listen to, and you were wrong about it. This one's the other way around, where there's video evidence of it contradicting other video. Just
my favourite.
The rule doesn't work.
Trying to keep up the character of the guy who believes this and is
trying to sell it
was so difficult when I was doing the Boom Boom Pow thing, and I had to say that the guy's basis for not being wrong about the lyric was that the song came out in 2008, and then he checked it and it was 2009. It was surely at that point any sane person would go, oh, okay, the lyric probably wasn't...
I've misremembered another thing.
Or do what you did and go, oh, maybe they wrote it as 2008 and then switched it up.
No, but to him, he could have just gone one step deeper. Not only did it change, the lyric, but also it used to be released in 2008. Yeah, but there was a delayed timeline.
That's where he took it. He took it to the point of, I'm not wrong. I'm not even wrong about the year the song came out in. It changed.
Yes.
To me as well, a lot of this stuff boils down to, people not really understanding... theory. A lot of people get the idea of theory and hypothesis messed up. When Grand Theft Auto Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, it was famously split into two parts, and a lot of people played Ground Zeroes. They got to the ending and they were like, oh, I'll play it again, it's a really short game. And they started picking up on these weird things like the lens flares and some of the strange directing choices that Kojima did, and they said, okay, something is off in this game.
Yeah.
I have a theory that Big Boss is actually... none of this stuff is really happening.
He's directing this,
Big Boss is actually in VR. It's all a simulation. Yeah. None of it's real. And the stuff they would point to would be like there are other characters in Ground Zeroes that share Big Boss's voice actor, Keith Sutherland, but it's like pitch shifted, and they do stuff to try and disguise that it's his voice.
Yeah.
And they go, well, why would they do that? And what they're doing is they're taking legit evidence. So your hypothesis is that something strange is happening in Metal Gear Solid 5 that Hideo Kojima is not telling us. Correct. Your theory that it's all happening in VR and none of this stuff is real is incorrect. And your inability to separate the two discredits your...
It's even different to that, because, hypothesis is actually what... So, in society, we use the word theory incorrectly. So, scientific theory and social theory is a separate thing. Like, you go, well, in theory, that should work. Well, actually, it's different. In science, hypothesis is your idea. Their hypothesis there is that there's this Big Boss is in VR. That's their hypothesis. And then what you should do is test that. And when you've tested it and you're close to 100% certainty, because so much stuff points to it, and you try and prove that test wrong, and you can't prove it wrong, that's when hypothesis becomes a theory. And the thing, what they're actually doing is just looking at completely tangent evidence, ignoring everything else that proves it wrong, and then saying that, this is certainly happening.
And the thing that was weird about that one is that, I've tried to be vague here because I don't think you've played Phantom Pain to completion. But there was something weird going on in Ground Zeroes that when people were saying, this is weird, that stuff was correct and it was part of the plot twist. Yeah. But what they all thought the plot twist was different and was incorrect.
And this is it, and this is where and this is the biggest difference between actual proper scientific thought and what a lot of people think it's about. And this is why we ended up with gods and stuff. To go to a bigger scale, really my final thing on it is humans love to fill in missing spaces with fantastical stuff, right? And really what this shows, these people are filling in their lack of understanding about human nature and how inaccurate the human mind is. They're taking what their original stance was, which is that humans are always right. They're continuing that, and that's their lack of understanding, and they're filling that gap with something fantastical and crazy. And that's what we did originally. That's what humans did, right? They saw fire, they saw seasons, they saw famine, and then went, something else is at play here. There's, and they were coming at it from a purely human thing. Their perspective was beings interact with this world, and they went, there's a being controlling this. And over time, we've filled in all those gaps. We know in huge detail how fire works. We know about thunderstorms. We know about why famine happens. And the God idea has had to recede to such a small zone of misunderstanding, and yet people still go, now we've had all of this, and you can see that's where the trend is heading, to a point where we can prove that isn't true. People will still look at that gap and go, that's where God fits. And it's a similar thing to this. Their lack of understanding, their hole in their knowledge, they fill with some fantasy, rather than actually going, I have a hole in my knowledge. I admit I'm wrong. I'm willing to learn about this. Nope.
I'm so glad that after the first example of this, you went, it's just that people are wrong and that they want it to be more important than it is. Because I cannot tell you how infuriating it was to sit through all of this stuff, and I'm so glad we did this and that there was a payoff for it, because it's actually been really enjoyable. But just to sit there and I don't really even care that they believe in the alternate timeline crap. I have a problem with the way in which they think you're a cuck and a fool for being a brainwashed person who can't see what they see.
It's like I'm giving them the grace or the generosity of respecting that and not putting it I'm not alright, I'm okay, you do you, buddy. But it's their audacity, and that they're thinking of you as an idiot and everyone around them as an idiot. And essentially they've got this
But then people will go, and I've seen it as well, on all of these videos, there's at least one person who comments going, you're a fucking delusional moron, you just have to accept that you're wrong. And there's 10 replies going, oh, another victim of the, take the red pill, why don't you, and to me it's just I consider myself to be. I try to be as skeptical as possible.
Yes.
You know, and
I think that's another interesting point to just touch on quickly. Is there a lot of it was coming to you're not open-minded enough. Now, I think they're very confused about what being open-minded, because they're the one rejecting reality here and not actually accept it. Like, I'm open-minded to things that genuinely like if someone does a test and there's a really odd bit of data that seems to go against this, you go, why is that odd bit of data? Maybe we're wrong, maybe we missed something, test again. That's what skepticism's about. That's what it's about, is it's finding these anomalies and really trying to get to the bottom of it. They're not doing that. That's not how they're operating. And that's where they've got the idea of skepticism and open-mindedness. Well, open-mindedness shouldn't mean that you're gullible. That's because that's basically what that is.
Yeah, I mean, and the same people that, like, much how I was insulting you throughout this whole episode and saying, oh, you're brainwashed.
Yes.
Like, those people would say that I'm not open-minded, but I spent hours watching these videos, researching this stuff. Like, if there was a pot of gold at the end of the light, like, the rainbow, I'm looking for it.
You're saying, really, genuinely, I'm trying to give you a chance here. Show me.
Convince me. Where's the proof?
Yes, and that's it. And I think that is like ultimately the problem. Is they're not really trying to get to the truth, and I think they just think that the majority almost can't be right. They're almost anti-popular, and the whole thing is...
It's cool to be like non-conformist and to be part of the counterculture. It is cool.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's unfortunate that they're just in this little well where they can't get out of that mind frame, and basically there's this weird confusion that open-mindedness has anything to do with fringe theory. Like, so often that's just the fallback to people who have out there theories or whatever, is that people aren't being open-minded.
Yeah.
When the reality is actually
you're not being open-minded.
No, yeah, exactly.
You're just accepting what you want to accept.
Scientific consensus, like, it's the aim to get the entire community to agree on one thing, and they do it by trying to prove each other wrong. That's open-mindedness. That's skepticism, questioning other people's stuff, peer review, and coming up with a consensus that is so well tested that it's correct, and that's what it's about. But they're not interested in that. They're about just going, well, I'm this outlying piece of data. I'm just going to focus on these weird anomalies, and that disproves all of the other evidence put in front of me.
Yeah, and I really wanted to be convinced.
It would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
I wanted to be convinced,
yeah.
but it just doesn't add up. And I have looked and I have not found one single thing that I would even count as proof or evidence.
No. And I don't think you ever will with those people. And you can't win. And because I think that once they get past a certain stage, if they don't grow out of it by the time they're in their 20s, they probably never will. And the honest truth is, and my final note is, I don't have a problem with people believing on that unless they're affecting other people. And the only time it annoys me is if they have a kid and they start indoctrinating their kid in that. I'm like, well, you didn't give them a chance. You haven't actually let them go out into this world with this proper childlike open-mindedness to learn. You've put a pre-bias on them, and that's what it angers.
It's strange, like the amount of people that you meet who have a belief and you challenge them on their belief, and they really can't tell you why they believe the things they believe.
And that's when I find people get the most angry. Like, I put a lot of thought into my worldview, and so I remain relatively calm when I'm discussing stuff. And the amount of times that I have people get annoyed with me, or they're like, oh, you're so sure. Like, they just get really defensive because maybe you put a spanner in the works of what they think, and because they've not come from an idea of, oh, maybe it's okay. I come from very much an idea of, it's okay for me to be wrong, because actually I'm about to learn something new, and there's no point.
And you've been very wrong in this episode. You're falling into, like, and I'm kind of happy with that, because a lot of these times when I was watching these videos, it would be like, what's the next lyric in Aqua Barbie? And I'd be like, in a Barbie world. Like, I was wrong as well, and I was willing to accept that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's about, is like when someone...
Especially on such trivial things.
I know,
like
that's the point I made. It's like, it's not on a microscopic level, but it's never on a macroscopic level. It's always just really like, if it's, especially the being theory, what's this being playing at? He's like, pick vengeance, and he's like, you boom boom pow. Like, what's he doing? Like, where's his end goal? And
also, like, the things that changed are things that you would understandably get wrong.
Yeah, and
Like-
it's all just completely logical that you like miss like.
Oh, I remember Sex in the City being called Need for Speed, but I looked back and it's called Sex in the City. What the fuck?
Sure, I was on drugs the whole time, but I don't see what that has to do with it. They opened my mind. So yeah. But anyway, thank you for that. That was very enjoyable.
No worries. And if you listen to this and you enjoyed it, there's plenty more it came from.
Definitely. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.